Well, I've restarted the practice of sprouting. I think my problem was I was trying to eat it raw. That was my mistake. So I take my sprouts now and I cook them. Boy, you would think that's sacrilegious or something, right? But I add a little vegan, gluten-based wieners, meat-free wieners, for a little flavor and oil and protein added, heaviness, gluten, right? Love the gluten. A little frozen broccoli, and then a mixture of lentil sprouts and sprouted wheat. Very short wheatgrass, about an inch and a quarter, inch and a half long shoots. That's how long I sprout it for. And I just simmer it with a little water in a pot for dinner. These are the raw sprouts, refrigerated, that I'm going to cook later. They keep pretty good because I wash my sprouts now in a mixture of distilled water, tap water with a little bit of soap. And the soap I change flavors for variety's sake. I use Bronner's cast style soap. Pure cast style soap, liquid. It's basically potassium hydroxide and oil, various oils and water. And it's a very ancient tradition dating back 2 centuries to the pioneer days. The pioneers would make their own soap out of lard and wood ash, which the other name for wood ash is potash, which is potassium carbonate, which is close enough. And so they would make their own soap using wood ash and lard and water. They would, cook it in a pot, and the wood ash, all the potassium carbonate in the wood ash, would emulsify the oil, the fat of the lard, meaning that the oil and the water would be able to mix. The oil would literally disperse into the water. Unlike salad dressing, the oil and water separate. So it's an easy way to make soap, but of course I just go down to the health food store and buy my own, and this one is citrus flavored, pure cast style soap. So I just put as little as possible. I try to get only a drop in, but of course I overdo it, and it ends up being a few drops, so it gets to be a milky white, discoloration. But that kills the yeast and the mold from growing. And then when it comes time to eat it, after I've cooked it a little bit, then I add some, because I'm a lazy bachelor, I don't like to juice lemons, I add True Lemon juice crystals, which is crystallized or freeze-dried lemon. And I might also add a little, well actually this is my container, my empty container, but I have powdered ginger in here. And of course I add other things to my meal, but it's very satisfying to eat sprouts, and it seems to agree with me to cook the sprouts. Sorry to say. They're still chewy, so it takes extra chewing, but then so do gluten-based vegan wieners are quite chewy as well. But the only easy thing to chew is the broccoli. Well, it's not raw broccoli, so it's nice and soft. So that's how I eat my sprouts now, and that's how I grow them. So I discovered this while living up in Washington State in a very mold-infested ski chalet cabin, that if I tried to grow wheatgrass, I had to spray it in a spray bottle containing a little bit of soap. Borax will kill the mold, but it will not kill the yeast. And soap pretty much, my main problem is the yeast. And liquid soap does the job, but liquid soap has all kinds of chemicals. It's not meant for eating. It does work, so then you have to go to the extra trouble to get something you can eat. Cast style soap is all natural, all pure ingredients. So I put in lentils and wheat, and the proportional ratio is very little wheat, because wheat is pretty strong and chewy, very difficult to chew. So it's mostly lentil. I put in a cup of lentils, and 2 tablespoons of wheat berries, and that seems to be the right proportional ratio, and also the right quantity for what looks to be, what is that, a quart-sized jar? No, that's bigger than a quart. I think that looks like bigger than a quart. I don't know what size that is. I don't think it's 2 quarts. Might be 2. Might be a 2-quart jar. I don't know, 1.5. It might be 1.5 quarts. Anyway, and I lean it over in a bowl, and I just rinse it out several times a day. And of course, I soak it overnight. And it takes about 4 days, I think, more or less. I didn't count the days, but so long as the wheat grows a nice shoot that's over an inch, just over an inch long, then it's about done. I mean, I don't want the wheatgrass to become too chewy, and then the lentils can also become too chewy if they grow too long. Anyway, so that's my new latest update on eating sprouts. I never thought I would have come to this conclusion, but I really have problems with yeast and mold, and I just can't stand the stuff. So not only do I grow this with soap, but I cook it when I get done growing it. But otherwise, in the fridge, I keep it raw, because it'll continue to grow and stay fresh. Cooked, it'll start to decompose, right? So I don't cook it until it's time to eat it. And then, of course, I have a few leftovers from last night I'll probably have for dinner tonight, because, cooked food doesn't last that long by comparison to raw food. And vegetables last longer than meat. Things decompose at different rates, and that's, I have to be careful that I don't eat spoiled food, so I have to be careful not only, just because I refrigerate something doesn't mean it's going to last forever, or even freeze something. I still have to be careful and considerate about how I stockpile something or have a leftover of something. What form does it come in? How long will it last? Because, frankly, my dear, everything rots inside my gut. After antifreeze poisoning, nothing gets digested right away. I take digestive enzymes, but still, I have to be careful what I eat, because the things that decompose most rapidly in general will also decompose more rapidly inside my gut. And that means it turns to poison before I get a chance to, well, not before, but because I don't digest my food very well, I'm left with a lot of remaining food left over that was not digested, and that turns to poison. So I have to be careful about what foods I eat. So if I want to eat fish, for instance, I can't, because it decomposes and creates a lot of toxins. But I can always eat fish oil supplements, capsules. I puncture them with a sharp knife, and then I can easily squirt out the oil in my mouth and then spit out the gelatin, because the gelatin constipates me anyway. And that way I can get the fish oil. It's like a refined version of fish, so I don't have to have the decomposition of the flesh portion of the fish to cause me problems inside my colon, and still get the benefit of a portion of the fish, the essence of the fish. We call it essential oils for a reason. Well, it's the essential nature of the fish or the animal is the oil of that animal, or the plant for that matter. And if I want protein, I can get it from vegan sources, which have a less tendency of breaking down, forming toxins inside my gut. So just by being selective and discriminating about how I go about feeding myself, I can manage my limitations and stay within those limitations and still have a varied diet. See that? Ain't that cool? Technology. It's all about technique. It's all about the application of knowledge and the discriminating use of knowledge, because technology doesn't have to be a cell phone or a computer. It can be just how we go about our lives. It can be applied to even how we poop, how we sit on the toilet to poop. Since the age of 18, I'll finish with this. A little gross, but I want to technology can be just about anything you can think of. Since the age of 18, I learned how squatting is the natural way to sit on the toilet. Yet we don't have toilets designed for squatting. We have them designed for sitting. Thus we call them thrones. Weird way, but whatever. But in Japan, you can get a squat toilet that you install on the floor of your bathroom. So you take out the toilet, the whole toilet, and you put this seat or squatting utensil or whatever you want to call it, furniture, in your bathroom, and so you have to do a deep knee bend basically, and you might have a handlebar to the side to help you if you need help getting up, for instance, or getting down. But you squat to poop and you come back up to walk away, and so you're in the correct position for childbirth as well as for pooping. But we don't do that in the West because we're stupid. we lack. When it comes to technology, we're tops. But when it comes to taking care of our body, we really suck. We're just not natural when it comes to our body. But since the age of 18, when I learned about this, I thought, hey, I'll try it. And sure enough, it makes pooping easier. But try to get up onto a toilet seat, an American toilet seat, in a squatting position without pulling a muscle. It's pretty hard to do. It takes a certain, and then you got to balance yourself, no less. At least if it's on the floor, it's not a big deal. But raised up off the floor, it's pretty easy to fall over, So I've had to learn all these skills, And when you're out in public, obviously I don't do it. At home, I'm in my bare feet, so I can use the toilet seat. But in public, I'm not gonna. Right, I got shoes on, so what do? Well, I put the seat up, and I sit on the rim. I squat on the rim. I always manage to do it. I mean, very rarely do I ever sit down. Maybe if I have diarrhea or something, then I don't need to squat. I just sit down and get it over with. But in my old age, with all my constipation, squatting has been a good habit. It actually makes it a difficult process easier. It shouldn't be difficult to begin with, right? But because I do it in a natural way, it takes a difficult process at my age and makes it easier, and that's a godsend. So all of these are applications of knowledge, and it doesn't matter how simple and low-tech it is. It's still technology, and it's still discriminating, and it's still intelligent use of resources. Because we have all these resources, but do we make use of them as best we could to fulfill ourselves and enjoy life more? And it doesn't take money. Money helps, but it doesn't take money. It just takes intelligence and thinking something through. How am I going to do this? Thinking ahead of time. It takes a few seconds. It doesn't even take that long. A few seconds of thought. I think I'll do it differently. And sure enough, whatever it is, turns out to be better. It's amazing. This is an age of mind, the age of Aquarius is supposed to be an age of mind, of thought. So it's not, technology is just a sidebar, a side benefit to taking the time to think things through. And we don't have to depend on inventors to do it for us. We can do it ourselves, with just simple things around the house, how we take care of our life. We're in public. There's, just a little words of wisdom here, but whatever. You have to be somebody like me, born a cripple when it comes to good health, to at the age of 15 realize I have to take responsibility for myself because nobody else is going to, and I'm stuck with myself, and nobody else cares. So I'm going to have to look after improving my situation with regard to my poor health, and that's what I've been doing. On and off over my entire lifetime of 4.5 decades since my adolescence. It's pretty important. I guess when you take your health for granted, you don't think of these things, so I guess you don't need to. You can turn me off and go listen to somebody else. But for some of us, we have to pay attention to our health, and it just spend it. I spend as little time. I try not to spend too much time on it because obviously there are better things to do in life than dwelling on the body. But still, it's not to ignore the body. I don't care how long I've been meditating for. My congenital defect still comes up and reminds me that I've got a body that's defective and I have to pay attention to it. Whether I like it or not, I do have to give some attention to the physical form and what I do with it or what I don't do with it. It's not enough to meditate and think good thoughts and dwell on positive-minded projects in service to others as well as oneself. The body has to be looked after, unfortunately. And it doesn't mean I have to spend a lot of time at it, although taping videos does take up extra time and posting them on the internet, but I want to share, and that's what I do anyway. So it just helps, it integrates my isolated existence with a little bit of public sharing. So it's at least one way to get out and socialize. Very, not your usual face-to-face, but hey, it does the job, right? It's one-way monologue, like a Jimmy Carson monologue, you know. But whatever. When you do your comments, then it becomes dialogue, and then I get to learn from you. But anyway. Well, I changed the way I do things to try to be more efficient, since I realize now that I have to grow my sprouts not for eating them raw, but for cooking them as a substitute, a cheap, inexpensive, cost-effective way to grow my own vegetables so I don't have to buy vegetables at the store, just one less expense on my tight budget. But to do it, I have to have a solution of tap water and soap, Bronner's cast iron soap. But I have to use very dilute soap. I can't use too much because then the sprouts won't grow. So I got out my eyedropper bottle and I filled it up with the liquid Castile Bronner's brand of soap. And I use only one drop in this glass pitcher of tap water to rinse out my sprouts and to soak the seed before sprouting them. And that is the only correct way for me to do it. So I use a cup of lentil and 2 tablespoons or an ounce of wheat berries to fill this glass jar, which I think is a 2-quart jar. I'm pretty sure it's a 2-quart sprout jar. You know, it has a mesh screen top, has a very nice top for draining, and then this big salad bowl to prop it up in. Since I don't eat salad, so now what I do is I cook pasta and potatoes. First I put the potatoes in the pot and I cook them for about half an hour or 20 minutes, and then I add the pasta, and then at the very end I'll add in the sprouts, stir them in, and then I'm done. So that's how I deal with the sprouts issue. So I thought I'd let you know.